This was back in high school, early 2000s, when most of us still spent Friday nights hanging out at someone's house instead of going anywhere else. That particular night, my group of friends had planned to watch a movie at Jeremy's place. I was riding with my closest friend, and we ended up getting there a few minutes earlier than the others. Rather than walking inside and dealing with small talk with Jeremy's parents, we figured we'd just wait in the cul-de-sac in his car. We had the radio on and were joking around, just killing time. Not long after, Jeremy and another one of our friends showed up. Instead of all of us heading into the house, they climbed into the back seat with us. It turned into this impromptu hangout session in the car, which at first felt a little strange, but soon we were laughing, talking, and enjoying ourselves without having to worry about keeping quiet or being overheard. We probably sat there for at least an hour and a half, maybe more, just joking about school, sports, and whatever else came up. Sometime after midnight, while we were still sitting there, a white van pulled into the driveway of the house next door to Jeremy's. It wasn't fast or dramatic. It just rolled in slowly and then stopped. The engine stayed on, but no one got out for several minutes. All four of us had our eyes locked on it, our conversation trailing off as we tried to figure out what the driver was doing. Eventually, the man inside stepped out. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s, dressed in dark clothes with a clean-shaven face and dark hair. There was nothing about his appearance that would have been memorable if we'd seen him anywhere else. But the fact that he was standing in a neighbor's driveway that late at night made the whole situation uncomfortable. Jeremy assured us he didn't recognize the guy and that no one like that lived in the house. At first, the man just lingered near his van, but then he shifted his attention toward the house. He slowly made his way up the driveway, calm as can be, and then onto the porch. He didn't knock. He didn't ring the bell. He simply stood in front of the door, peering through the glass panel at the top as if he was trying to see inside. Every so often, he leaned forward slightly like he was straining to catch a glimpse of something. We couldn't see anything in his hands, so he wasn't holding a package, tools, or anything obvious. He just stood there. The atmosphere inside our car changed immediately. What had been funny and lighthearted turned into complete silence. None of us knew if we should get out, yell something, or stay hidden. The man didn't move for what felt like 20 minutes. Whether it was that long or not, it was far too much time for someone to be silently staring into a stranger's house after midnight. We debated calling the police or at least alerting Jeremy's parents, but we froze instead. None of us wanted to make a noise or draw attention to ourselves. Eventually, the man turned around, walked back down the steps, and climbed into the van like nothing had happened. He started the engine right up and began backing out of the driveway. For some reason, instead of letting him drive off, we decided to follow him. My friend, who was driving, kept his headlights off as we trailed behind at a distance. The neighborhood was quiet at that hour, and there was no disguising that we were the only other car on the road. The van crawled along at first, but when it became obvious we were tailing him, he started to accelerate. My friend matched his speed until we reached the main road out of the neighborhood. At that point, the van sped up and disappeared down the street. We sat at the exit for a minute just to make sure he didn't turn around and come back. When we finally returned to Jeremy's, all of us were buzzing from the adrenaline. We got out of the car and headed inside, laughing nervously at how long we thought we'd been hidden, only to realize we had been sitting directly under a streetlight the entire time. Anyone could have seen us without effort. That thought kept us on edge, and even after we were inside, none of us slept much. Every so often, someone would sneak a glance out the window to make sure the van hadn't returned. It never did, at least not while we were awake. Looking back now, I regret that we didn't call the cops. We even had the guy's license plate number written down, yet we didn't do anything with it. At the time, we were just frozen between being scared and feeling like we were part of some weird adventure. Nothing bad ended up happening, but that man's behavior was too strange to brush off. What sticks with me the most is how unusual the whole setup was. We almost never sat in a car outside Jeremy's house. And in fact, I don't think we ever did it again. It just happened that one random night we chose to wait outside. And because of that, we witnessed something we can't explain. When I was 17 back in 2009, I worked as a courtesy clerk at a local grocery store. My main job was bagging groceries and hauling carts in from the parking lot, but sometimes I helped out with other little things, too. My mom and sister both worked there at the time, so the store had this family vibe for me, and I usually felt safe being there. A lot of the older guys I worked with looked out for me since I got unwanted attention from grown men more often than I should have at that age. Sometimes my boss would even drive behind me after closing just to make sure no one followed me home. There's one situation from that time that I'll never forget. It was the middle of summer, ridiculously hot, and I had just pushed in what felt like 100 carts. I ducked into the little pizzeria corner inside the store to cool down and grab some water. While I was standing there, sweaty and drained, this guy in his 20s or 30s walked right up to me and handed me a slip of paper with his phone number. He didn't even say much, just slipped it into my hand and walked away like it was no big deal. I barely processed it because I was so tired, but something about how casually he did it stuck with me. The very next day, I was walking across the lot when a silver minivan rolled up beside me. I noticed a tiny pair of baby shoes swinging from the mirror. It was the same guy. He leaned out and tried to start a conversation, but I cut him off and told him straight out that I was 17 and already had a boyfriend. Usually, when I said that, guys backed off, but this one just stared at me for a moment before driving away. That night, when the store was close to shutting down, one of the cashiers leaned over and whispered that someone was watching us. I turned my head and saw him again, the man from the van standing by the end of the register lane, staring without saying a word. My stomach dropped. I told the night manager right away, and he left the office door open while counting tills so he could keep an eye out. The man walked out eventually, but instead of leaving, he stood outside near the entrance waiting. My manager ended up driving behind me again that night to make sure I got home safe. Things didn't end there, though. A couple of days later, I got a random text from my aunt. She and I barely ever talked, so it was strange. She had sent me a link to a Craigslist missed connections post asking if I thought it was about me. I opened it and my blood ran cold. The post said something along the lines of, "Saw you at the grocery store. You had a bow in your hair, suspenders hanging off your shorts, a stack of wristbands, and bright-colored hair. Your name tag said Garrett. I'm 40. Would like to meet up." What unsettled me the most was the level of detail. He described everything I was wearing that day down to the smallest accessory. But the Garrett part really freaked me out because Garrett wasn't my name. The guys I worked with and I used to switch name tags as a joke, sometimes just to mess with customers. That meant this man had been watching me closely enough to notice and then remember the fake name I just happened to be wearing. I went straight to my day manager and showed him the post. He immediately replied to it pretending to be a parent, writing something like, "Too young for you, parent." He didn't even hesitate. After that, things just kept getting creepier. I'd spot silver minivans around the lot or on my way home, and sometimes I wasn't sure if it was even him. But then one night, I saw him parked outside and rushed back into the store to avoid him. Not long after, I turned down an aisle and there he was already behind me. There was no way he could have parked and gotten inside that fast. When I screamed, he bolted and disappeared before anyone else could see him. That was the point where the police had to get involved. For about a week, they sent officers to escort me home after every shift just to make sure nothing happened. Eventually, I was transferred to another location in a different town. And after that, I never saw the man or his van again. I still think about that Craigslist post sometimes. The fact that he noticed every detail about me, memorized them, and then wrote it out publicly makes my skin crawl. Even now, being hit on by older men unfortunately never stopped. But that experience with the van and the post has stuck with me in a way the others didn't. This happened 5 years ago, 5 summers ago to be exact. My girlfriend at the time, let's just call her PS, had just graduated from college with me having graduated a year earlier. We aren't together anymore, but there's no bad blood between us, and I don't regret a single bit of our relationship, even though it eventually fell apart. She had just gotten a new job in the city and we wanted to celebrate, so we decided to take a short trip. We didn't have a lot of money back then, but we had a car and enough gas to get us to the mountains. We loved hiking and camping, and summer felt like the perfect time. We packed light, threw our sleeping bags in the car, and headed out early in the morning. The drive was beautiful, winding roads surrounded by endless trees, the air getting cooler the higher we climbed. When we reached the campsite, it wasn't crowded, just a couple of other cars scattered around. We set up our little tent near the edge of the forest, not too far from the trail we planned to hike the next day. That night, after roasting marshmallows and talking under the stars, we went to sleep. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, not sure why. It was dead quiet except for the occasional chirp of crickets. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching over the leaves outside our tent. My heart froze. I gently nudged P.S. awake, whispering for her to be quiet. She heard it too. The footsteps circled our tent once, then stopped right at the entrance. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. Minutes passed, or maybe it was seconds. It felt like forever. Then, nothing. Just silence again. Eventually, we must have dozed off out of sheer exhaustion. In the morning, when we stepped outside, we saw it. Clear footprints in the dirt. Bare feet. This happened in 2011. I had just started a job that required me to drive long hours late into the night. One particular night, I was heading home around 2 a.m. The road was completely empty, not a single car in sight, and the only light came from my headlights. It was one of those stretches of highway where you can go miles without seeing another soul. I was fighting to keep my eyes open, so I rolled the window down to let the cold air hit me. A few minutes later, I noticed something on the side of the road up ahead. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a deer, but as I got closer, my stomach dropped. It was a woman. She was standing completely still, facing the woods, wearing what looked like a torn white dress. Her hair was long and messy, covering most of her face. I slowed down instinctively, my mind racing, but every instinct in me screamed not to stop. As I drove past, I turned my head for just a second to look at her, and she turned too. Our eyes met. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her eyes looked hollow, like there was nothing inside them. I hit the gas and didn't look back. To this day, I don't know if she was real, or if my exhausted mind was playing tricks on me. But one thing I know for sure, I've never taken that road again. Back when I was a teenager, I used to sneak out at night with my best friend. We lived in a small town, and there wasn't much to do, so we'd usually just walk around, talk, and hang out at the park. One summer night, we decided to explore the woods on the edge of town. Everyone said they were haunted, but we didn't believe in that stuff. We had flashlights and started down the trail, laughing and daring each other to go deeper. About 15 minutes in, the air felt different, heavy, like the whole forest was holding its breath. That's when we heard it. A faint sound, like children laughing. We froze. It was coming from deeper in the woods. At first, we thought maybe other kids were out there messing around, but then the laughter turned into crying. Soft, broken sobs echoing through the trees. I shined my flashlight in the direction of the sound, and that's when we saw it. A figure, small, childlike, crouched down near a tree. Its shoulders were shaking as it cried. My friend whispered, "Hello!" The thing stopped instantly. The crying stopped. The forest went completely silent. Then the figure stood up. It wasn't a child. It was tall, much taller than either of us. Its limbs too long. Its head tilted unnaturally to the side. We dropped our flashlights and ran faster than we ever had in our lives. This took place in my first apartment. I had just moved in and was excited to finally be living on my own. It wasn't the nicest place, but it was mine. The first week went fine, but by the second, strange things started happening. At night, I'd hear faint knocking on the walls, like someone tapping slowly. I brushed it off as noisy neighbors. But then, I started noticing things moving. I'd set my keys on the counter, and later they'd be on the table. My TV remote disappeared for 2 days, only to show up in the fridge. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of someone whispering. It was faint, coming from the corner of my room. I turned on the lamp, but no one was there. My heart was racing, but I convinced myself it was just my imagination. A few nights later, I woke up again, this time to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Slow, steady, getting closer to my bedroom door. I was frozen. The footsteps stopped right outside. I held my breath, waiting for the door to open. Instead, the doorknob slowly turned, back and forth, like someone was testing it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I moved out 2 weeks later. This story isn't mine, but it happened to my cousin. She was babysitting for a family in our neighborhood. The house was old, creaky, the kind of place that always felt a little unsettling. The kids were already asleep, and she was sitting in the living room doing homework when she heard something upstairs. At first, she thought one of the kids had woken up, so she went to check. She peeked into their rooms, but both were sound asleep. As she turned to go back downstairs, she heard it again. A soft humming sound, like someone singing a lullaby. It was coming from the end of the hallway, where the attic door was. She stood frozen, listening. The humming grew louder, clearer. It wasn't the kids. It was a woman's voice. Terrified, she grabbed her phone and called the parents. They rushed home immediately. When they arrived, she was still shaking. She told them everything. The parents looked at each other, pale as ghosts. Finally, the mother said quietly, "We should have told you. Our house used to belong to an old woman who passed away upstairs. She used to sing lullabies to her children every night.